Kids are done with college, but their financial path is just starting. In this episode, we dive into how parents can guide and support their adult children's money decisions without fostering bad habits or risking their own retirement. If you're wondering how much to help, when to pull back, and how to set them up for success, this episode has you covered. This week for our panel, we've got Sean, Bob, Tyler, and Nick as they share practical advice for guiding adult kids through the critical years of financial independence. Sean, I know this is a passionate topic for you. I'm going to go ahead and hand it to you to get us kicked off.
Yeah, I think it's a conversation that we get a lot. And ultimately, everyone wishes they had met their financial advisor sooner. They wish they had the foundation built. And as they start to get into retirement, they say, how can I now help my grown children? And it's one of the greatest purposes that we get out of helping people is having the opportunity to help, young kids kind of put together that strong foundation. Because if you can get that foundation right, truly anyone can be a millionaire. I think that's what's so great about building that strong foundation.
Yeah, and Sean, didn't you share? I mean, one of the things that I remember you talking about is just sharing the little tidbit of maxing out a Roth IRA for however many years, right? And you could be a millionaire regardless of kind of all the other income and everything. So it's about laying this foundation of the behavior of saving or behavior of making the best financial decisions early in life versus having to kind of catch up on the back end. And I think the one thing that I always stress for folks is at least get in there and start saving to a 401k, employer sponsored plan up to the match, because it's effectively 100% return on your money immediately, gets you investing, gets you into that behavior of investing, and helps lay that groundwork for a successful financial future going forward. So my big piece of advice, get into that 401k, and not necessarily pre-tax. And that's something maybe we can talk about, but maybe Roth, maybe pre-tax, but certainly get that 401k started and get that match.
Yeah, I'll take the viewpoint from someone who works with a lot of younger clients. Some clients who are in that 23, 24, 25-year-old age bracket. A big thing I see is avoid trying to keep up with the Joneses. You're going to have some friends who got great jobs right out of college, right? Could be making $200,000 right out of college. Don't feel like you need to keep up with them. Have your plan, stick to your plan, and that's what's important. Don't feel like you have to blend in with that crowd who may make a lot more money than you do at the current time.
And on that note too, like another way to phrase I've heard is lifestyle creep, right? Like as the early stages of your career, usually when the income will like start to ramp up more and more. And so just having like predetermined goals for what to do when the new money, additional dollars come in, so it doesn't just flow into the lifestyle bucket.
And
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
well,
think
that's a
I would say I think you can, have some benchmarks, right? That everyone can follow. And these are easy to communicate to kids and easy for, them to kind of understand. And they really don't change no matter how old you get. And I talk a lot about how there's a difference between being wealthy and being rich. There's a lot of rich people that, have to work till they're 70 because they're spending everything. Wealth is, hey, I can retire when I want because I had a plan in place. And so if you follow some of those benchmarks, and maybe we can have a little debate on what these might be, but the key phrase is, if you can save 20% of your take home pay, then, and you do that forever, you build that foundation, you're going to be successful. And if you cannot spend more than 30% of your take home pay on your home, you're going to be successful. And that may mean you got to, have 3 roommates, or you got to, live in a neighborhood you don't desire. But if you can make those kind of structural changes that are easy to understand, easy to implement, and not spend more than 10% of on your car, then you're going to have a really strong foundation. And what I'll tell people is 20% is a great goal, probably more fitting if you're 35 and above. But at least build that foundation with 5% before the age of 24, 10% for the age of 27, 15% for the age of 35. So there's some very clear benchmarks that people can start to build a plan and follow those benchmarks to achieve success.
Yeah, and I think having those benchmarks is a great way to think about it, Sean. I agree with it. The one thing I want people to think about or be careful of is sometimes they get caught up in, okay, that 10, 15, 20%, whatever it needs to be, needs to go to my 401k or my employer sponsored plan, right? I think that understanding that there are a lot of other ways to save and invest your dollars outside of just the employer sponsored plan that has a little bit less flexibility for how you use it and how you access it. So that 20% doesn't need to be, hey, this goes to 401k. It can be, hey, I'm saving this to a brokerage account, or I'm saving it to a Roth IRA, or I'm saving it to any number of different vehicles, versus kind of the traditional thought of like just stuff as much as possible into the 401k and don't worry about it. Tax flexibility is extremely important.
Yeah, with this younger generation that I'm working a lot with, flexible retirement comes up in almost every conversation. And so when you're saving in those traditional retirement type plans, you have a little bit of trouble trying to access that money, before 59 and a half. So the non-qualified brokerage account is becoming more popular every year, I feel like, because it lends that flexibility to be able to make decisions, on early retirement or flexible retirement, as people are calling it.
Yep. And
Well,
one thing I want to add, maybe Nic, you can talk about this a little bit too, is from an investment standpoint, what I see a lot with younger folks is they try to hit too many home runs, right? Like they try to invest in things that are, sexy or the cool thing right now. And, cryptocurrency is an easy one to pick on as we sit here today. But generally, if we just chug along and get that 6, 7, 8, 9% rate of return for a really long time, you don't need to try to hit the home runs. You don't need to have a speculative investment strategy. Just a good balanced approach can be a great way to get you where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. And even like the other side of the coin, like there's the folks that try to hit the home runs, and then there's like another, and I see it through all generations, like retirees, pre-retirees, and then super young folks too, where they get like obsessed with dividends, right? They're like, it's passive income, I want dividends. And really what we encourage folks to be focused on is total return, when dividends are a function of that or a piece of that equation. But just making sure like you don't get too like narrow-minded or too focused in on one small niche pocket of investing, and like that's really how you get the stable returns over time. 'Cause there's times when dividend strategies will look great and outperform, and there's times when they'll underperform. So just focusing on total return and keeping it as well-rounded of a portfolio as possible makes a lot of sense.
And I like to kind of say, like, as a pilot, I'd forget to put the gear up if I didn't have a checklist. So if I can make it very easy for people to follow, meaning I have to take advantage of my company's 401k match because that's free money. And ideally, if there's a Roth option inside that 401k, a lot of people don't even know that exists until we start to have that conversation. So can I invest in a Roth 401k up to the match? And then let's set up an emergency fund. And that emergency fund is going to vary based on a lot of different variables, right? So, am I married? Is my spouse working? Am I in a sales job where, I'm going to grow my territory and they're going to say grow it by another 40% next year? And it's like, that's impossible. Now I got to change careers. So, all sorts of different variables are going to say, hey, I need to have a larger emergency fund or a lower emergency fund. And ultimately, the way I communicate is that gives you power. We don't want people to be working and then saying, I really hate my boss. I hate this job, but I don't have flexibility to leave this job because I need that paycheck on the 1st and the 15th every month. Well, all of a sudden, I've got a 6-month emergency fund. I don't like that job. I don't like that boss. I want to move locations. I've got, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever across the country. Now I've got power and I've got flexibility to go ahead and move. And then after I get that emergency fund, maybe go to a Roth IRA and back to the 401k. But lay it out in a simple to easy process for people to follow. That way they're not, wondering, should I be doing this? Well, the person at the water cooler said I should be doing this. And, the person over here's got Bitcoin. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Right. So if we can just make it very easy to follow, then they'll build that strong foundation and be off to a great start.
and from the client perspective, how do you guys think about that decision of, do I continue to take, those dollars pre-tax into a 401k or switch to a Roth IRA or Roth 401k? Like, is there an income threshold where it's like, hey, maybe give up the tax benefit of the pre-tax and take it after tax?
It's a great question, Ryan. And I hate to say it depends, but oftentimes it depends, right? Like it depends on how much you already have saved to the pre-tax or the Roth or the after-tax side of things. It depends on your income level. It depends on whether or not you're married or plan on getting married anytime soon. It depends on your kids you may have or may plan to have, or, don't want to have. Like, any number of things can change the answer for, hey, how should I go pre-tax Roth brokerage? But what I try to say is maintain tax diversification, right? If you see that you've got, $100,000 in your pre-tax 401k, but you have $0 in your emergency fund or brokerage, or $0 in a Roth, well, it's time to start to balance those things out, right? So sometimes it's as simple as just looking at it and saying, how do I get these buckets a little bit more even? And then you can get into the specifics depending on your circumstances and your goals.
To that point, Bob, I actually met with some new clients yesterday, and we were going through their accounts and what they had, and everything they had saved up was in traditional 401k plan. So we
Mhm.
started talking about RMDs. They didn't even know what those were, or that they had to take that out and then pay taxes on it. You know, Unfortunately, it's a little too late. There's some things we can do in early retirement to kind of mitigate that down the road. But, if they would have been planning at 20, 30, 40 years old, this could have been a problem we could have avoided, or at least managed.
And I'll give another kind of, maybe controversial or another strategy would be have that Roth IRA opened up as soon as possible. Because if I put money into a Roth IRA and it grows, the money that I put in, I can pull out. So I could use that for an emergency fund without paying the 10% penalty, so long as that account's been open for 5 years. So if I can start that when I'm 18, by the time I get to 23, the money that I've invested inside of my Roth IRA, not the growth, I can withdraw without penalty up to a certain limit. It there are different strategies depending on people's goals, but a really good advice to give your children is, hey, at 18, at least start that 5-year clock. That could be $1, that could be $1 million, right? But if I've started that clock now, and all of a sudden I've got some flexibility to be able to tap into that basis that I've put into that Roth IRA as an emergency fund.
Yep, that's it. Great point, great strategy. With that, I'll give something to avoid, right? Because I think we're saying all the things to do, or a lot of things to do. One thing to avoid, I can almost guarantee it, that whether you're a recent college graduate, you have kids that are recent college graduates, grandkids that are recent college graduates, they're going to have a friend that works at, and I won't name the company, but it's going to be a
Don't do
mutual
it, Bob.
insurance. I won't
Don't
do it,
do
but
it.
it's going to be a mutual insurance company, and they are going to call you and tell you that you need to have permanent life insurance, that even at 23, 24, 25, it's a must have. It grows with cash vet, like all this stuff they're going to talk. Do not do it. Run for the hills, say no thank you. I don't want to do that. It is absolutely not something that a young professional needs to have as part of their investment strategy, is permanent whole life insurance. Please avoid it.
And I'll jump in there. Like my initial start was at a large firm, and that's exactly how we were trained was, hey, this person who's 23, 25 years old, they do not have a $500,000 invest with us. So if they open up an IRA at $7,000 a year, that's $70 a year for you as an advisor. You're not going to make any money on them. But if you sell them this product, then all of a sudden you'll make commission. And it should be
Mhm.
illegal. Those people should be in jail. The SEC should be doing something about it. But unfortunately, that's the way that the business has always been run. So, one, if someone's telling you that, they're not a financial advisor, they're a salesperson. And, call Balance Wealth, right? Call a good firm that's going to do the right thing by you, because it might take 15, 20 years to make the same amount of money off the $7,000 a year IRA person as it would be to sell them some product right off the bat.
Mhm.
Understand how that advisor has been incentivized. And I agree with Bob, avoid, because that's how you destroy a foundation before it ever gets built, is buying a bad.
All right, great discussion, guys. Hopefully this gives you some actionable advice to pass on to your kids as they're starting to try to form good saving habits and make good decisions. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Sean, call him our episode winner of the week, and he's going to go for his hopefully right around 60-second rant, and then he'll take us home.
I don't know if I can wrap this up in 60 seconds, Ryan. I am on my way to a college, or I'm sorry, I wish it were college, a 14U soccer tournament where we got to spend $1,000 in hotels, feed the family, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, eating out, $75 a ticket to get in, $75 to park your car. I don't know how you sports are going to survive. We talk about helping our kids. We got to help grandparents that want to go to their grandkids' games and spend $150 for the weekend. This is getting outrageous. We need a government. We need Congress. We need someone to step in and do something. This is getting ridiculous.
I second that.
Don, I can imagine those costs really weigh on you. I mean, hard to be able to afford to give your kids those opportunities if you're not taking the advice from this episode early on in life. So that's it for this episode of Balance Your Wealth, and we look forward to seeing you next week.